The rain hit the windshield like tiny fists, and the single dad stood outside a stranger's car window, begging for a ride that would never come. His daughter was crying inside a gas station bathroom, sick with fever, and he had $4 in his pocket and a car that wouldn't start. He knocked on that window one more time. The woman inside looked at him, rolled her eyes, and drove away, splashing muddy water across his only jacket. What she didn't know is that by tomorrow morning, everyone in that town would be talking about him. Not because of what he lost that night, but because of what the world was about to find out he had hidden in plain sight for 12 long years. That night, Lily's fever spiked high enough to scare him. He wrapped her in a blanket, carried her to that same broken-down car, and prayed it would start. Didn't. Not even a groan from the engine. So he did the only thing he could. He picked her up and started walking toward the gas station 3 blocks away, hoping someone, Ainage, would stop and help. Cars passed. Nobody stopped. Rain soaked through his shirt, through Lily's blanket, through his pride. When he finally reached the gas station, the cashier let them sit by the counter for warmth. But there was no pharmacy nearby, no way to get medicine before morning. That's when the woman in the silver car pulled up outside. He knocked gently on her window, asked if she could drive them to the nearest pharmacy, promised he'd pay her back somehow. She looked at his oil-stained jacket, his daughter's flushed little face, and she said, "I don't have time for this," before rolling up her window and driving off. He stood there in the rain, not angry, just tired. Tired in a way that goes past your bones and settles into your heart. He walked back inside, held Lily close, and whispered, "We're gonna be okay, baby, I promise." He didn't know if that was true. He just knew she needed to hear it. An older man named Walter, who ran the gas station, saw the whole thing happen. He didn't say much, just handed the single dad a cup of hot coffee and a child's cough syrup from behind the counter. "On the house," Walter said. "Your girl needs it more than my register does." It was a small kindness, but it cracked something open in the single dad's chest. Something he'd been holding together with sheer will for 2 years straight. He thanked Walter with a voice that shook, and for the first time since his wife died, he let himself cry in front of another person. By sunrise, Lily's fever had broken, thanks to that small bottle of medicine and a few hours of rest on a gas station bench. The single dad called a tow truck to finally deal with his wife's old car, mostly because it was blocking his neighbor's driveway and he couldn't keep making excuses. The tow truck driver, a younger guy named Marcus, hooked up the chains and started pulling it out when he suddenly stopped and stared at the car like he'd seen a ghost. "Sir," Marcus said slowly, "do you know what this car is?" The single dad shrugged. "Just an old family car. Doesn't even run." Marcus shook his head. "This isn't just an old car. This is a 1967 vehicle with a matching numbers engine. And if what I'm seeing under this rust is real, sir, this could be one of the rare—" For a moment, the world just stopped. The single dad stood in his driveway in yesterday's damp clothes, holding a cold cup of gas station coffee, and stared at the woman like she'd spoken another language. "That's not possible," he whispered. "This car doesn't even start." Diane explained that the car's rarity had nothing to do with whether it ran. It was one of only a handful ever made with this specific factory configuration, most of which were destroyed decades ago. His wife's grandfather, it turned out, had been a mechanic who'd quietly saved the car from a scrapyard back in the 60s, never telling anyone what he truly had. He'd kept it in a barn for 40 years, passing it down without ever revealing its worth. Maybe because he didn't fully understand it himself, or maybe because some things are just meant to be found at the right time. Word spread through town fast. By that afternoon, reporters and collectors were calling nonstop, and the single dad sat on his porch steps with Lily in his lap, still trying to process that the car blocking his driveway for 2 years was worth more than he'd earn in 10 lifetimes at the shop. But here's the part that mattered more than the money. He thought about the woman in the silver car, the one who drove away and left them standing in the rain. He wasn't angry at her anymore. If anything, he felt sorry for her. because she'd never know how close she came to being part of a story that changed a family's life forever. He thought about Walter, who gave a stranger medicine without asking for anything back. And he made a decision right there on that porch step. He sold the car 3 months later, after the story had settled and the offers had been verified by 3 separate collectors. With part of the money, he paid off every bill he owed, bought a small, reliable car that actually started every morning, and moved himself and Lily into a modest house with a real yard where she could run without stepping over gravel and broken concrete. But he didn't stop there. He walked into that same gas station, found Walter behind the counter like always, and handed him an envelope. Inside was enough money to pay off Walter's mortgage completely. Walter opened it, read the note inside, and had to sit down on his own stool, tears running down a face that hadn't cried in years. "You didn't have to do this," Walter said. The single dad shook his head. "You gave my daughter medicine when you didn't have to. I'm just paying it forward." He didn't stop there either. He set up a small fund at Lily's school for kids whose families couldn't afford field trips or winter coats, quietly, without his name attached to it, because he remembered what it felt like to need help and be too proud to ask for it. Lily, now healthy and laughing again, would sometimes ask him, "Daddy, are we rich now?" And he'd smile and say, "We were always rich, baby. We just didn't have any money." She didn't fully understand what that meant yet, but someday she would. As for the woman in the silver car, she recognized the story on the local news weeks later: the broken-down car, the rainy gas station, the $12 million discovery. She sat frozen in her living room, realizing she'd been the stranger who drove away. She never reached out, never apologized, and honestly, the single dad never expected her to. Some people teach us lessons just by being who they are, even when they never say a word. What mattered wasn't what she did that night. What mattered was what he chose to become because of it. A man who remembered every small kindness and multiplied it 100 times over. The single dad still visits that gas station sometimes, even though he doesn't need anything from it anymore. He just likes sitting on that same bench with Lily, drinking coffee that isn't nearly as good as that first cup Walter gave him for free, and remembering that the worst night of his life was also the night that changed everything. Because sometimes, the thing you think is broken beyond repair, sitting quietly in the rain, forgotten and rusted, is actually worth more than you could ever imagine. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness from a stranger becomes the foundation for a lifetime of giving it back. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment to share your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Wings of Kindness for more inspiring stories. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's life forever.